All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Miranda, and I am here with a partnership. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm going to have the rest of the team introduce themselves in just a moment. Do want to do a quick disclaimer that we are recording the webinar, so if folks do not want to be on camera, you are welcome to turn it off, but we would love to see your faces. Couple of housekeeping for anyone who is not familiar with Zoom. You can expand your audio for call-in information if you are having any trouble with the audio on your computer. You can disable your video or you can enable it. You can also, I need to add that to this, when you see your name, you can click the three little dots next to it. If you feel like you need to change your name, you are welcome to do so. I encourage folks to add your pronouns so we can make sure that we don't misgender anybody. You can also see who all the participants are, so you can chat directly to any of us with a partnership, or you can chat with each other. And if at any time you need to leave the meeting, you're welcome to do so. And the meeting is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our resource library shortly. All right, and I'm going to have the rest of our team introduce themselves as well. Whoever would like to start.
Buenos dias, everyone. I'm Alejandra Aguilar, gender pronouns she, her, hers, or ella y ellas. I lead the statewide prevention program at the partnership, and I am so excited to be here with you all to unveil one of our babies. So excited. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Marcela Maggio here, prevention coordinator and storyteller. Really excited for y'all to be here, not only to put youth in the lead, but to put these stories at the forefront as well and get you all riled up to tell us your stories and to intersect all these different ways that we can have these conversations. So thank you for being here.
Hey everyone, my name is Jess Merrill. I do communications at the partnership. I can't wait for Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. Truly, it is one of the best times of the year for me. Youth in the lead, and we're going to be talking a little bit about our campaign, and we'd love to hear some of your plans as well. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Tanahashi. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the communications coordinator at the partnership. I'm working with Jess on our Youth in the Lead campaign for TDV APM this year. And I look forward to working with y'all.
We have a huge team now, people. Woo! This is exciting.
It is. I remember when I first started, it was me and Micah, and we pulled Jess in, and it just grew from there, which is beautiful. So today we are going to be talking about our Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month campaign, and we want to hear about your plans as well. We'll also be introducing our new Prevention Across California interactive story platform, and cannot wait for everyone to see that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it on over to Jess.
Thanks, Brenda. So one sec, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Put it on slideshow. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm going to be talking a little bit about our Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month campaign in 2021. And it is Youth in the Lead, a continuation of last year's theme, which we'll get into a little bit in a few minutes as well. So I want to talk a little bit about how our campaigns are going to be different this year. You already know this has been an extremely rough year, especially for Black, Indigenous and Native, and youth of color. They are deeply impacted by these inequities, by the pandemic, by structural racism, by an economic recession. And I want to read an excerpt from this KQED article that kind of provides some context here. Activists in their teens and 20s have had an outside role in the latest wave of the Black Lives Matter movement. And a new poll of youth voters of color and from the nonprofit Power California reveals they're bearing the brunt of the pandemic's economic downturn while leading the charge in civic engagement. The results of the poll indicate that many young people of color have fallen through the gaps in California's pandemic response. 46% answered that they live in a household that has struggled to afford food, medicine, and other basic necessities. And here's a quote from a UC Berkeley student who was interviewed for the article. It's a lot of profit over people mentality, says Richardson, citing a lack of support for renters and small business owners. It's not get people better so the community can flourish. It's so people can get back to work. So that is very well said. And we want to hear from you. This is a question for the chat. How are youth in your communities doing? And while you're typing your responses, I want to read a quote that has provided a lot of inspiration to me, and I think to a lot of other people who have read it, from Mercedes Toon, the capacity building program specialist here at the partnership. Our fertile soil is our current reality exposing all the cracks in the systems, all the needs and all the strengths in place to challenge and change the status quo. This is what youth are doing. They are challenging the status quo. And you know that. So Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month is an opportunity for us to continue elevating their voices. So in that spirit, we went with youth in the lead as our theme again. And this is really to center youth leadership, youth expertise, and to be able to connect them with decision makers so that they are truly heard and that their approaches to organizing are heard and can be supported and implemented. And as people are typing some of their responses, looks like people are introducing themselves, but you know, if folks are interested in talking a little bit about how youth are doing too, feel free to add those as well. This campaign is going to be focused on youth storytelling. Last year, we had an approach where we had a survey and youth were responding to various questions about intersecting social justice efforts. And they provided some really rich quotes that we were able to put in shareable graphics. And as we evaluated our campaign last year, we realized we need more context. We need the full story. We want people
last day I'll work outside
to hear youth tell their stories in their entirety. So we have a video project that we are launching. And we'd love for you as the preventionists who work directly with youth to think about who might be interested in telling their stories of activism, how they've been supporting one another in the midst of this pandemic, how they're promoting racial justice, how they're engaging in peer-to-peer education, on healthy relationships. And so Miranda is going to be sharing the link to that in the chat. It's just a simple interest form. You know, you don't have to have everything figured out yet. Just, you know, let us know that you might be interested and we can talk with you about the opportunity. And it is a paid opportunity based on the federal contracting rate. So we want to pay youth for their time. Next, I want to actually pass the mic to Marcella. She had a really great idea about providing preventionists some support as they are working with youth to tell their stories. So Marcella, do you want to talk a little bit about the self-care guide?
Yes, thank you so much, Jess. In having conversations with Jessica about last year's campaign and some of the conversations that were had with youth and their advocates, as well as the preventionists on our team, it really came to my understanding that some of them were not having the opportunity to really be with their stories, to truly understand them from a preventionist lens. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, are they ready to tell that story? Have they been with that story enough that it is not something that is still impacting them on the daily, but they have evolved it enough to be with it and to share it out loud. There are times when our stories are too tough for us to actually speak about ourselves. And this is where the storytelling aspect comes in, is that they are still able to tell their stories if they're not ready to get up at that mic. And the self-care guide is an opportunity for advocates and those who work with youth to be that trusted adult and really stand with them and make sure that they are ready to tell their story in any capacity, and then what that capacity looks like. So I'm excited to really look at the ways that we can weave our stories, our lived experiences, and put youth in the lead of, instead of what do we want them to say, it's what are they ready to tell us, and how are they ready to tell us? So more about that as it builds, but I'm really excited that we're going to be able to work with them in this capacity.
Thank you, Marcella, and great idea too. We also want to provide some shareable images like we have in past years. So these will focus a little bit more on what teen dating violence is, the risk and protective factors, and of course, really encouraging adults to make space for youth leadership as well. So we hope those will be useful to you throughout your social media efforts. Another one of our goals, and this is ongoing, is educating legislators on prevention. And over the years, really thanks to you, thanks to the Prevention Peer Network for showing up to Policy Advocacy Day, for showing up to Orange Day, for educating your local policymakers. We feel like there really has been a shift in understanding that sexual and domestic violence before adulthood can be prevented. Teen dating violence can be prevented. That's first and foremost. And then secondly, youth leadership is a vehicle to get us there, and really reinforcing the importance of legislators and policymakers listening to these youth organizing strategies and providing them support as they do that. One of the highlights of Orange Day for me last year was when Speaker Rendon acknowledged that he was asked to be at our Orange Day rally because of his level of influence in the legislature, and he wanted to use his power, his privilege to lift up youth voices. And that was huge, I think, in really fostering an understanding of the role of adults and of policymakers. And also we want to provide a guide for preventionists. You know, Miranda, this was your idea. You have brought up many times that preventionists are doing a lot of great innovating to meet the needs of youth through curricula, and we want to support those efforts. So Miranda, I wonder if you might want to talk about this section and also pose the question to the group. Oh, you're on mute, Miranda.
Sorry, I had someone at the door. So yeah, we know that some of the challenges that folks have had is figuring out how to adapt your curricula so that it's going to work within the virtual, as there's a very different flow when you're able to be in person with people. So we've been talking with folks about all of the different ways that they've been adapting, what platforms, and some of those changes that folks have made as they're figuring out how to move within this virtual space. And so I'm curious for folks, what are some of the struggles that you've had with that virtual engagement? Could be with students, with teachers, with parents. We know that a lot of the schools are kind of overwhelmed with all of the things that are happening. And so there's been some struggles that folks have had in getting in. So I'm curious, what are some of the struggles that you've had with virtual engagement with students, teachers, or parents?
And your responses, I know Miranda's already been doing a great job of of collecting some information from you. But if you want to talk to us in the chat, you can. If you want to send us an email, all of that will help inform this guide to be able to lift up all of your innovations throughout the field, so we can continue to support preventionists.
And I know with some of the youth in my life, some of the challenges that they have talked about is, nobody wants to turn on their camera. And I've definitely heard that from a lot of preventionists that I've been speaking with. And there's so many different reasons for that youth may not want to. So yeah, Zoom fatigue is real. Students turning their videos off, not getting permission slips. Teachers have a lot of new duties on their plate and incredibly overwhelmed, stressed, fearful of failing. Yeah, that burnout is so real. And not just for the students, it's also for us, right? We're spending huge amounts of time on the computer very differently than we did before. Yeah, teachers who are also parents, absolutely.
So it looks like we're getting a lot of great responses. Definitely please continue to share those, and we're going to save the chat as well and make that available to everyone. So you can kind of connect on some of these ideas, and we'll make sure to note them for our guide when that comes out. So thank you, Miranda. Okay, so I want to hand it off to Megan Tanahashi, and I also just want to give her a shout out because we are so lucky to have her at the partnership as the new communications coordinator. She's doing an awesome job and has design chops. So she is heading this section of the campaign. So Megan, take it away.
Thanks, Jess. I'm really happy to be here with all of you all and be able to share all this with you. So last year we had a campaign that was designed by a student artist, and we are hoping to continue that into this campaign as well. So we're seeking a graphic design proposal from young people between the age of 15 to 18, and there will be a $500 stipend for that. And we're hoping to get a few design assets from them. And it's all in our teen dating violence awareness form. Let me drop that link in the chat. And so if you have any youth in mind who are very into the arts, into graphic design, go ahead and forward them that link, and hopefully they can get through that survey with just a few background questions on what their ideas for the campaign are, and we'll get back to them, hopefully, on working together.
Thank you, Megan. And I want to point out too that last year, Anastasia Sanofsky's piece was a mixed media piece. She did some graphic design, some painting, some drawing, some photo images. So really the sky's the limit here. And this is also really enriching for us at the partnership. I remember working together with the prevention team last year and really just getting to know Anastasia, like learning about her activism in her school, learning about her love of art and what types of media she liked to use, and also just imparting some information too on what what a statewide social media campaign looks like from our standpoint, and what some of our goals are for Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and really ensuring that her vision can shine through in our materials, our graphic materials. So please spread the word. You can spread the word to art teachers, really any teachers you know of, because they might be able to connect with their colleagues on this. And this is the part where I pass it back to Miranda. We just want to hear about your plans. And I know Miranda has like a ton of experience implementing local Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month campaigns, and also supporting preventionists as they brainstorm their own. So thank you, Miranda.
Yeah. So yeah, if folks are down to, you don't have to use the chat. If you want to unmute and share some of your plans, we would love to hear those. We know that it's not going to look like it has in the past, but there's still some really phenomenal ideas that I've been hearing from folks, and would love to hear what folks have planned, or some of those adaptations, what platforms.
Hi, this is Alexandra here. This is our first year where we've had young people go through like a youth advocate training, and we have stipends that we can pay them to get involved with projects like this. So we will be having our first meeting next week with our first group of young advocates, and we're gonna completely leave it up to them and see what they want to do. So I'm really anxious about it, but I think that they're gonna have the best ideas because yeah, they're gonna know how they want to engage with this work, and they know their peers best. So we will see.
All right. That's awesome. How about other folks? I see from Rebecca. So with our youth, we are doing a community mapping training right now. We're hoping to use this training to get their brains working on how they want to engage with their community in February for the campaign. That's awesome. Is anybody using TikTok? I know some folks kind of, you might roll your eyes at the thought, but there have been some really cool videos out there raising awareness and fun ways to have those conversations. And I know just with the kids in my life, they are very big on it and creating some really, well, one of them is creating some really cool content. The others are dancing and being silly, which is awesome too. Nobody's got any plans for February? I know you do. Yep, via social media outlets, looking at some ways. Campus campaign for students to submit any form of art, written, digital, or work regarding healthy relationships. And Elise with House of Ruth, we are hoping to continue the awareness through art showcase at a local gallery and using time slots for social distancing. Is it just thoughts, no actions taken yet? Awesome. I know in the past we had done, when I had worked in a local program, we had teamed with a local group that did poetry slams. And so we went and there were different prizes for different levels. And oh, if you had, you know, if it was on theme in terms of healthy relationships, communication, or, you know, domestic or teen dating violence, then being able to bring that, you got more points for that. Yeah, preventing to school boards and keeping that up, advocating for policy change is so critical. Yep, educating those decision makers, absolutely, Holly Grace. And elevating those youth voices. And I know with networking, I've heard a lot more connections that folks are able to make because it is virtual. So you're not having to do the permission slips to travel and things like that. There's some other ideas that folks are mulling around.
And I just want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I mull around an idea with folks?
Absolutely.
So we have some funds that are available now for quick release. And these are like funds for, and so I'm sitting here, I was thinking about what Timothy just wrote in the rural areas. So I'm thinking if there are folks that like need a modem or one of those Google Chromebooks, right? These are items that are like under $1,000. Cameras for multiple use, headsets, like items like these, I think would be really easy for us to just purchase and get them out to you all. But we would need to hear like, what do you need? So if that also helps, like as you're sitting here thinking about your Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month campaign, like, oh, it'd be great to do what, Elise said, but I don't have XYZ. Like, put it into the chat, or I'm going to put my email in here also, but share them, because I think it would be helpful to see like, oh, if I had that, I could do this. And sometimes it's helpful to see and think about what others are doing to get our free thinking going.
And if you're limited by having a free Zoom account because you're not able to pay for it, let us know. That is something that we can potentially help with, as well as Alejandra was talking about with the webcams. If you don't have a proper one, or if yours is, starting to fail, or any of those things, as we know that is something we've been hearing from people, let us know. We definitely want to be able to help with those. And as you're thinking about, if you're hearing, ooh, policy change, I want to get involved in that. We've got all kinds of ideas for you on that. And we update our Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month resolution every year. So we will have that available for everyone to be able to take to your local legislators and policymakers and start doing some of that education. So definitely let us know. And if you're needing support on how do you do that, we can definitely support you in that.
I also want to give a shout out to Haven. Holly Grace was bringing up, educating decision makers, and their media advocacy over the years has been excellent. Like, I believe they're on the front page. The young people who spoke at our Orange Day rally were on the front page, and some other youth leaders last year of was it the Modesto Beat, I want to say. So really cool. Let us know if you need any support pitching stories to local journalists. We would love to help with that.
Hi, my name is Liz. I'm with Valley Crisis Center in Merced, and I've never planned a teen domestic violence month campaign. And so I think it's like hard to think about now, what do you do in this different time? So even if people have like examples of what they've done in the past would be helpful, just because like, I don't even know what to adapt. But one thing that we were thinking about during Domestic Violence Awareness Month that we didn't end up doing is, I was thinking about like just having them like talk about, or like have some kind of conversation about what they want in a partner, what they would like what things they want to work on before they're dating or as a partner. Kind of just like, and I think it could maybe morph into something like with Valentine's Day, like thinking about, and of course, like relationship with yourself too. So trying to think of things that just like youth would be interested in doing or could be fun, and is not like, because I think a lot of presentations, like what are the warning signs? And I think those are good, but I think I do a lot of those like red flag presentations, and I feel like something a little bit more positive hopefully would make youth engage more. So I'm wondering just what people have done in the past in different settings that we can morph.
Yeah, that's definitely resonating with folks, the idea of where do we start, especially in the virtual.
Hey everybody, sorry I've been off camera and stuff. I've got a lot happening in my house today, like so much. I just wanted to add that Haven has been really fortunate to be able to send a couple of staff through Story Center's digital storytelling training. And it is such a powerful mode, for youth to be able to share their stories, to create content, to do it anonymously if they want. They don't have to be forward, in front of the camera. They can use a lot of other imagery. I don't know if the partnership has capacity or funding to support digital storytelling training for preventionists who can then, spread that out across the state and just have more storytellers, more mechanism for capturing that. It would be so, so cool. And I would love to blend Central Valley stories with Northern California stories, with SoCal stories, and really get a fuller picture of the amazing work that youth are doing. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we do have funds for bringing in trainers to do, especially with it being virtual, is we're going to have a lot more access for folks, because I know historically, like, there's been challenges for people to get to trainings because of costs, like travel and all of those things. So being able to do that virtually, we do have some funds to be able to support bringing in trainers. So thank you very much for that idea.
And also, which you are going to learn today, we have a storyteller on our staff now. Marcela Maggio is a phenomenal storyteller, and you're gonna get to see so much more of her skills. And yes, if you have ideas on who we can invite, we've got some funds that are supplemental COVID related that need to be used up by January. And then we have some funds that are ongoing. So Miranda and I are trying to figure out, like, what do we need to put in place now that can be spent immediately? And what can we maybe plan for in the spring or so? So share those ideas. Who would you want to invite? Yeah.
I don't know what your restrictions are, but we have had success paying upfront for storytelling training and then accessing it whenever the online training is available. So if that's an option. And I have direct contacts with folks there too, if you want an easy in with anybody. They're really trauma informed and culturally responsive, and it's a great organization if you haven't worked with them before.
If you could make the connection, Holly, that would be great.
Holly Grace, we worked with Amy Hill before. Is she one of your contacts?
That name does not sound familiar, but anyone, we've recently sent some folks through their podcast training. So I have,
okay.
I'll just send whatever current info I have. I'll look at it on the background and stick it in the chat for you guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah, we definitely, Marcella's phenomenal. And we also have Magna Bot with Calcasa. So there's some really, really phenomenal storytellers that we can connect with. So very excited about that. I feel like we could have a whole conversation with folks just on what have you done in the past and what are some ways that you're looking at doing some modifications in another forum to be able to go really deep into that. And we're getting some great examples of what folks have done in the past as well in the chat, and we will share that with everyone. Everything will be uploaded to our resource library and made available.
I did hear, I don't see them on today, but in one of the Shifting Boundaries Community of Practice meetings, someone had talked about having youth create Zoom backgrounds that are healthy relationship centered, consent centered, right? So you would have like a pool of Zoom backgrounds to use from, or if you want to make it like a competition, you could have kids grade them or score them. But then you have all these Zoom backgrounds that the youth have created that are with healthy messages on them. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I love that. And I know that there's some really cool platforms other than Zoom where you can do participants being able to go to different tables. queer prom was held, and my stepdaughter was able to go for the first time because it was virtual, and they had used a platform where there were different tables that you could choose, and so it gave the youth from all over the area a really phenomenal chance to be able to connect with each other and to go into different tables, and like each table had its own activity, but it was essentially like breakout rooms. So I'm gonna find more out about that platform on Monday, and we'll share that out with everybody. It was Appreciate is the platform, and I'll grab the link for folks and get that sent out.
Miranda, you are an encyclopedia of wealth. Like you just know, and you're like, let me find it and let me share it. I'm like, this is so amazing.
Thank you. All right, and here's the link for folks. And from what I can see on their site, it is super affordable. So, like I said, I'm gonna be going through a demo on that really soon, and hopefully we'll be able to share that out with everyone after that.
I was seeing the question about what prizes have you found youth get excited about? Back in the day when we were meeting in person, I know that they liked, yeah, this is a long time ago, but you could use the lanyards and the cover cases for phones, and if you are working with a funder that does not allow for giveaways, don't forget, we talked about naming them behavior modification materials, and I'll put it in the chat, behavior modification materials, or training supplies. So behavior modification materials applies to the fact that youth are engaging in the training because they're going to get something in return. And that's okay, because they're engaging in the training, and that's the one of your goals or outcomes of the work. So yeah. Oh, gift cards all the time.
Yep. And especially with how things are, if you're able to do like DoorDash gift cards or things like that where they can get food, or something that can be delivered, that can be fantastic as well.
A free pass, like a day where you don't have to turn on your video camera.
Ooh.
I could throw out some ideas. Hi, real quick, Irene here. Similar, I think, to someone earlier, I didn't turn on my camera. I'm just fatigued today. I think we all kind of feel it. But some things, as I was thinking of folks just sharing in the chat, like, where do we start? How do we kind of go from here for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, other than like, I think our basic orange days and talking about relationships is one thing I used to do, and I'm with House of Ruth, and this is like, I think Elise had mentioned, we don't have anything official in stone, so I'm just sharing things I used to do at my old agency. But like talking about healthy versus unhealthy relationships, I used to create like an actual board and do like bagels. And so I had different couples from different like TV shows, even celebrity couples, influencer couples, like TikTok couples, right? So try to, I guess, learn a little bit about like their world, and then utilize that to kind of talk about healthy relationships. I was just thinking right now, like, how could you do that virtually, is maybe have a healthy relationships presentation and then do a breakout rooms and have each breakout room maybe talk about a specific couple or a specific like TV show couple or something like that, and analyze scenes. I also talk a lot about with youth, and this is just me in general, maybe just letting them know, like, letting them forgive themselves on maybe the unhealthy habits that they've carried within their relationships. So when I talk about like teen dating violence or healthy relationships with young people, I talk a lot about how, they learn this stuff from family, friends, TV shows. And so to not be so hard on themselves. I always compare it to like, there's no dating class in high school. There's not a relationship 101 class. Even in health class, we don't really learn about relationships or how to communicate. So even just things like that, where youth kind of feel more normalized and maybe sharing experiences. I talk about being like a child of divorce and how growing up relationships were not really prioritizing for me because I didn't see them prioritized within my family. So like for them, that could be something similar, and how we maybe navigate the relationships in our lives. This is just me like now just brainstorming out loud. But yeah, I was just thinking maybe those type of topics, right? Other than maybe just our typical Orange Day, or maybe just like raising awareness, what better ways we could engage with youth. And I think that would be really cool. Like I think Alejandra was saying, someone had mentioned, maybe making those backgrounds like that topic, or, like the couples, right? Like they get to choose, and then maybe talking about it together, right? So maybe they all were like, we choose, I don't know. I'm trying to think of celebrity couples, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, and, having a conversation about why does everyone think they're a healthy couple, or why don't they think they're a healthy couple, and just stuff like that. I don't know if any of y'all think anything out of that too.
Hi, Irene. I wanted to chime in a bit. I really love that idea, and I think it's something that's really accessible to youth. My one thing that I might add to it is like when we're talking about why we think someone's a healthy couple, like talking about the kind of veneer that social media gives us to think that we know what a relationship is like. So like just talking about, you may compare yourself to other relationships that you see on social media, whether they're your peers or they're famous people, and just keeping in mind that what we see on social media isn't always how a relationship is, and that can sometimes be just a veneer, and I'm not trying to invalidate that activity at all, because I think it's really awesome, but just as a side point or an addition that you can, I don't know, I think you all know where I'm going with this, but you can you can get down in the dumps when you're comparing yourselves to these seemingly amazing relationships, where you might not know that they're having similar issues that you're having in yours.
Excellent point, Holly. I appreciate bringing that awareness, that extra layer, because it is so prevalent in our society to put on all the smiles and ignore what's really happening. And that comparison is so real, especially with youth. It starts early, and I think that that's an excellent way to take those conversations a little bit deeper, thinking about why we put celebrities on that pedestal to begin with, why we don't honor our own relationships, for what they are, instead of trying to emulate something else that may or may not be. So yes, I absolutely love taking those deeper conversations, and I encourage all of you to find ways to do it. It's so incredible what comes out of those minds, especially when they know that you're actually listening and wanting to shift those conversations for their betterment.
And I'm loving the conversation, and I do want to be mindful of continuing our conversation. We do have a Facebook workplace, which is totally separate from your own personal Facebook. So if folks are down, I can put that in the chat, and we can get you added to continue this conversation, because we see how important that absolutely is. So if you are interested, go ahead and you can just say yes in the chat, and I can capture that and get everybody added. Because we definitely want to create a space for folks to be able to talk this through more. And I want to make sure that we can get through our pieces today. So thank you. I'm going to hand it back to Jess.
Thank you, Miranda, and thanks to everyone for this really rich conversation. I think we are going to stop here. There was a section for questions, but I feel like if folks want to continue the conversation or ask questions, definitely drop them in the chat or send us emails, you know, Miranda, Jessica, Megan, Alejandra, Marcella. It's all of our first names at cpedv.org. So thank you so much.
Should we take over from here, Alejandra?
Yeah, I was wondering if Miranda, yeah? I don't know if Miranda was doing a switch transition over.
This is our transition. It's all you.
So this is like a dream come true, and there's so many pieces coming together in this story. So we're going to be sharing a platform with you, but I want to invite you to join Marcella and I on a little bit of storytelling from myself and the impact and importance of relationships that we build also along the way as preventionists. So please bear with me. There's a couple of things coming together in this next platform that you're going to hear about, the Prevention Across California Interactive Prevention Story Platform. And this started years ago and continued here. So if I can share a tidbit with you all, hold on to your jewels, your goals, your ideas, your dreams of what you want to see happen at your organization or elsewhere, because it might not happen today, but it can happen tomorrow. So Marcella and I worked together in San Diego. I am pleased and honored to share that Marcella actually trained me on prevention. And when I saw Marcella present and she was talking about like the gender boxes and she's up there and she's like, yeah, but this and that. And like, she's so dynamic and theatrical. And I was like, holy fuck, I want to be like her. Like, and she was just so engaging. And I could feel that the youth were chiming in and just totally connected to the story and the conversation. And when she did the media dialogue and started talking about stories and what we see in the media and what are you watching? And she always knew and was connected. Anyways, fast forward to we are now teaching at, yes, she is a unicorn. And then we are teaching, working with the youth who are incarcerated. And so in order to get from San Diego to Camp Barrett, it was about an hour drive in and an hour drive back. So in that hour in and out, we would talk and talk and talk. And we got to know each other about our life, our survival, our moms, our experience in relationships. We'd talk to each other about who we were dating and what we were doing. And we would also talk about how do we bring in some of these connections back to the youth who are incarcerated. And if you don't know Marcella is the queen of acronyms. Marcella can turn a lesson and plug in an acronym and just make it work. So we were sitting here talking about how charming these guys are now, because the first day they honestly wanted nothing to do with us. They were ready to throw tomatoes at us the first day, right? I don't know if you work with incarcerated youth, but the first day you walk in, they're kind of like this. Like, who are you? And why are you here? Like, get out of my space. Here's another adult that's going to tell me how to live my life, right? And how I suck at everything. No, we got to know the kids. We got to have fun with them and get to know everything that they loved. No judgment. Like, you want to be the best fucking pimp in the world? Okay, let's talk about that. Because by session 12, we would understand and work with them on why being the best pimp in the world isn't great, but it sounds like you've got some great entrepreneur skills, right? So, but they're really charming and they knew how to like navigate, and they were really good at either being a pimp because they were so charming or selling drugs because they knew how to navigate that. And that charm applies also to our relationships. And if you have not heard us about the acronym CHARM, I'm going to share it with you, and then we're going to jump over to this platform. So Charm your way to healthier relationships. C for communication, because everybody needs to communicate in a healthy, timely, and assertive way. If we don't have respectful and healthy communication, when you take the C out of charm, what are you left with? Yeah, harm. So healthy communication is the foundation to any healthy relationship. Then we get into the H, which is have fun with each other. If you're not having fun with each other, then what are you doing, right? And A is acknowledge and apologize when you've made a mistake. And I'm going to add a new A on here, which is accountability. Because I can't just walk through life saying, oh, sorry, I did that. Like, you know, my bad. And we always say one time is a mistake. More than once, you've made it a habit. And the accountability is also for you to hold yourself accountable to not do it again. So acknowledge, apologize, hold yourself accountable. The R, respect each other. You got to respect each other. And the M, make space for each other and take space, right? We know the M, make space, take space, but what does that mean in a relationship? It means that it's not just what Marcela wants. It's a combination and balance of what Marcela and Alejandra want. And these principles of healthy relationships, charm, can also be applied to our work. We did create a handout for charm at work, because the values and principles of a healthy relationship also apply to our healthy relationships at work. So we'll send that over. So charm, fast forward, beautiful, getting people talking about what prevention is and what healthy relationship looks like, and at every piece. Now I'm at the partnership, and back in the day, again, when we used to meet in person, and you had Miranda, Jessica, and Alejandra in the conference room at the partnership talking about, we had just finished Advocacy Day and meeting with legislators, and the challenges of legislators not understanding what prevention is. And you would constantly talk to them about, well, you know, we need sustained long-term prevention. R is respect. You need prevention funding, and they still think that prevention is shelters, right? So do we increase more shelters? Do we make more shelters? Do we make more, support centers, more counseling? That's intervention. And you can have prevention at intervention services. That's secondary, right? We're talking primary. So stopping prevention before it happens. Oh, well, those are the workshops that they do in the classrooms. So there's more, right? There's so many different ways you can engage in primary prevention, because it's not just with the kids. It's with the adults. It's with the parents. It's at work. It's when we're at the bar grabbing a drink and some dude comes over and puts his hand on my shoulder. Disgusting. Move. Like, it's all around us. And what does it look like? So we were sitting there in that room, Miranda, Jess, and I, and I'm like, we need something that like can showcase visually. A graphic maybe, but it needs to move around, that can like show people that with one choice, every single one of us can engage in prevention. At every single moment of our lives, there are opportunities for us to engage in a new behavior by being a bystander that engages and pivots that moment. And that, unfortunately, we went to the team page design, graphic design of like, oh, this is our story and this is what we want to do. Something intersecting, connecting the dots of the risk factors that, and protective factors and all of that. Well, it's going to cost you $50,000. I don't know about you, but I don't have $50,000 laying around. Not in my pocket, not in the grant. It just doesn't happen. So, okay. All right. Then COVID. As much as I hate this bitch, like, she has come in and got the CDC to give us like $250,000 to be able to do something that responds now. And it was funny because we get the email that's like, do you have an idea to spend the $250, and you need to write the application within 2 days. And I'm like, Jess and Miranda, we're spending it. It's done. We're doing this. And we bring Marcela in because we need a storyteller that can come in and put these stories together, because what we want, which you will see, are stories of everyday people dealing with the challenges that existed before COVID, but are now heightened. So now everybody's like, ooh, financial stress. We've been dealing with financial stress for the majority of our lives. Like, it's there. Now it's heightened. Not having access. Undocumented immigrants have never had access to unemployment insurance. Now it's just worsened. So all of these disparities we are wanting to highlight through these stories and give you an opportunity to take them, because they are yours, take them, use them throughout your communities, and find ways to engage others. And by engaging others, I'm going to make space for Marcella.
Thank you, Alejandra. She says that I'm the storyteller, but she is a phenomenal storyteller herself. I am so proud of being on this journey with her. And like she, first started with, Save Your Jewels. Y'all, one day we're going to tell this story about this partnership, and it almost wasn't. We almost did not charm each other, right? So that's the key of charming, is really being mindful of how are you bringing that charm with that other person? How are you engaging in those conversations and relationships? And I'm so proud that I was given this opportunity to come forward on the team and use my my lived experience of being a survivor, of knowing what it feels like, and not having that space to tell the story, not having that legitimacy. And what I mean by that is society tells us so many times that if we're not meeting these certain requirements, if you will, that our value is not as valuable as someone else who may have a degree, who may have higher privilege at their job. And so all of a sudden, those stories are left behind in the dark and only brought out when there's wanting to, in a sense, sad to say, exploit it, right? I'm going to use this story to bring in new funding, because it is a story that speaks to the pull strings of people, right? And how about the prevention of people? Where are those stories? How can we use those same stories, empower the ones who lived it, and have them rewrite that resilience? And this is what the storytelling is all about, is you are all going to have an opportunity to be the professionals and meet these different people in our community who are not being heard because they themselves don't even know their own story. They themselves don't know what they're living under. Or if they do, many times, like me, they don't feel encouraged to tell anybody. They're living in a sense of shame and blame and being hidden in those stories. So this is an opportunity for you all to meet Monica, who is our first story. And I'm going to share my screen with you and bring Monica into the forefront via our website first. Let me pull up that screen here. Okay. All right. So right on our website, if you, a quick way to also share the story and also to bring everybody to the same table as far as where to find those resources, where to find that companion guide, is visiting our website, and also put it in the chat as well. But let's go down to, first and foremost, like Alejandra had mentioned, charm your way into those healthier relationships. So This is available on both laptop and mobile. Oh no, where did it go? Just wants to restart, I guess. Now, unfortunately, because everything moves so quickly, in the beginning, we were really wanting to be mindful of having accessibility on mobile devices, and along the way found that with the current format that we have, the best way to see it on your mobile device is going to be in a landscape view. However, it is still accessible, and those are those lessons learned along the way as what works and what doesn't. But I invite you to go through this story and really be with Monica and her family. In first impressions, we tend to be biased to our own lived experiences. And what was really interesting about this particular story, and I would love to share this background, is that initially we did not put out that it was a real lived experience. We had an advisory board and we brought the story to them. And right away, there was some of that biased judgment. There were people saying that's not real, that would never happen, that's too stereotypical, and just really not wanting to be with the reality of what we were bringing forward. And it was interesting because it was at the same moments, and what we noticed is that those were where we're having the problem in having those deeper conversations, enriching those moments of, am I really here to help? Or am I here to just check a box and say that I did my due diligence in giving you the resources that I am required to give? And what are those requirements? And do I have community partners who I could bring in to this conversation? And if not, why not? Is it a matter of time? Is it a matter of policy changes? These are the things that we really want you to be mindful and think about, as far as why wouldn't someone have this conversation with Monica? Why would this be so taboo when it's really about her overall health and safety and the health and safety of her children? So like I said, I don't want to go through the entire scene. However, I do want to also share back to that page as far as the companion guide. And Alejandra, if you have anything to share specifically about.
I would actually invite you all to jump on right now. I would invite you to plug it into your computer, go to your phone, and check it out right now. Because in the moment responses will be really helpful for us to know, what do you think, right? How would you use this in your community? Because we have ideas, and you're going to see them in the companion guide of how you might use this, but we want you to use it. So preventionacrossca.org. On your phone or on the computer, you can move us aside and jump on over to the page. Go through it with us. And let us know if you have a problem logging on.
Nothing is happening on mine.
Oh, no.
They're just all standing there. How do I get it to like start?
Can you try to refresh? Does that do anything?
So it's preventionacrossca.org is one. You can copy it directly from the link. Or
Refreshing it helps. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
So on this first question, what is the what is the first answer that comes up for somebody? We'll put it in the chat. All right, let's go to A. And I'm sorry, Alexander, I didn't see your C first. So A went to, when we feel uncomfortable after a discussion, it is our body telling us that something is not okay. So this is really a part of having that conversation early, going back to that charm and letting them know right away that we're going to include those in some resources. So staying engaged, there's more to come.
Yes, Liz. In this case, they do. They all lead to the same response. So Liz in the chat asked, do they all lead to the same response? You'll see that if you go through it, the point here is to acknowledge that all feelings are normal, right? They're your feelings. And as folks are also navigating through conversations about, when we say like, oh, it's none of my business, like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not my issue, for us to remember that when our body elicits like a gut reaction, it's your body telling you that it is your business, like do something.
Absolutely. And also this particular one, the question was added in response to the advisory board. So, we initially only put in one decision time where, people are going to almost choose your own adventure type of style. And that will come a little bit later, but we found out that people wanted to stay engaged. So we included that question. And like Alejandra said, to really, think about people's feelings and such, but it's also another way to continue that engagement.
And please feel free to unmute yourself if you have comments, thoughts, questions that are coming up for you.
So now about this, what are people feeling as far as options? We can start with one and work our way down. But really, being mindful in the future, introducing, letting the person decide for themselves. And then our last option. And this is our key ingredient to every story, is really thinking about what is Lupe and other professionals, what is their role when having these conversations with their clients. Lupe went above and beyond in really thinking about what Monica wasn't saying. And so in essence, she was able to provide her with other resources. And like I said, what was really interesting about this particular story, and I give so much kudos to the partnership, our team, for just, having the bravery to share this story, because there is tabooness. So want to put it out there, you could put your mics on, you could answer in the chat, but I'm curious to find out who was drinking.
Yeah, there's a couple of great questions. So that one, who is drinking, and Liz, I'm going to put the question back on you. Who is the audience for this tool?
I feel like it's the helper person in this situation, the person who, like us, like it's the people working with clients who are trying to do this kind of social work side of it. Because it's asking, right, from Lupe's perspective, like what to think outside of the box and to see what other things are going on. And I wanted to mention, I'm reading this book right now called Skimmed. It's about breastfeeding and racial injustice. And it talks about like this story. I was like, oh my gosh, like they should include this with the book, because it's really looking at like not assuming that there are preferences within communities for certain habits, like the assumption that like Black women don't breastfeed. It's not inherent to a community. It's because of all of these social barriers that make breastfeeding really hard. And I think addressing like paid family leave, like, do people know about that? Like addressing these other things that make it so that there isn't the support, like because of the social structure. So I think it was just a really weird, an interesting intersection that, yeah, looking at it through the lens of like, it's not this one choice that someone's making. Obviously, like, hopefully everyone is moving away from those frameworks about just individual choice, and looking at how all these factors shape someone's ability to choose in the first place.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what this is about. It's not just that Henry won't eat or latch on correctly. There are so many factors going on. We are multidimensional people, right? And we carry ourselves and live in this world, not only because of who we are, but because of how the world perceives us or the way systems are set up for us. So you've identified a couple of those sectors in here that we're mindful of and want to hear about, so that we can also continue improving the companion guide and other stories. So companion guide. Wait, so before you go down, Marcella, I know folks are already jumping in as well. So who else is your audience in the Monica story? Who else could you use the story with?
And or thinking about all the people in the story, right? Who's being impacted? how can we get involved and make sure that their needs are also being met?
I think we could use it with clients thinking about, talking to them about like, sometimes you're asking for one thing, but there might be other things that you could use help with, like, getting people to articulate those things. Because yeah, it's good for a worker to read between the lines, but it also can be beneficial for a client to learn to advocate for themselves and know that it like what issues they can raise, like even though they're meeting with a lactation consultant and they might only be focused on breastfeeding, thinking about these people may have resources and they may know if I'm having these other issues, like being able to advocate and saying, hey, these are other things, and realizing that those things are connected and that like professionals or, resources or friends or family may be able to talk about those other things happening too. Yeah.
I think that this can be used to train advocates, so that they can see that, there's always something else going on at home. It's not just one thing. And that also like choosing which resources you're going to offer is kind of tricky. You have to really pay attention to not just what your client is saying, but like the little things that they skim over really quickly are oftentimes like those the most important pieces where like certain resources would be more beneficial to them. Yeah, I think that training advocates would be really awesome. This would be really good material to do that with.
Yes. At your site, how often do advocates understand prevention? Más o menos, kind of, not really, right? Again, we get so siloed into prevention is this, intervention is that. And several of us have worked on both sides, intervention and prevention, and we see it. We've seen it. When you're in it, you kind of have this narrow lens. So we're inviting folks to really shift their lens to see individuals and families as full entire systems. And that's where that intersectionality comes in, is that it's not just about accessing the DV advocate, right? There's so many issues going on here. Now I'm going to ask a question. Is this domestic violence?
Yes. I feel like it is. There's the trainings recently been to is like, everybody wants to do good and bad and black and white and this and that, but all the things are true at once. And yes, like the way that they were talking to each other at the beginning or the way that the man was talking to the woman at the beginning is a form of intimate partner violence. And the way that the mother was projecting her self insecurities onto the baby while she's breastfeeding is a form of intimate partner violence, or they're not partners, but that's a form of child abuse. And while it may seem like you're slapping this label on these people, is like, no, it's not, but it is what it is. And we have to understand that is the reality of these interactions, so that people understand it and that they're more mindful about their interactions in the future.
Thank you. What do others think? Is this domestic violence?
I think we don't know. I think that like you've seen a little snapshot of a picture, and there could be other things happening and there could not. I think if there weren't other abusive other abusive acts happening, I wouldn't classify it as abusive, because I think when we talk about the spectrum, right, we're talking about unhealthy territory, which I feel like is the very salvageable territory. Like, I think, of course, like when we want to prevent any abuse, and there's hope for people who, maybe present a huge danger to their partner. But I think it can be a really good way to prevent violence by showing like, you know, these are unhealthy tendencies, but you see like the husband's or partner's remorse kind of, and like wanting to reach out. And it's like tapping into those things where we have some sense of how we should act in a relationship, but like really focusing on it and looking at, okay, how would that have affected the situation if you had sent that text saying, hey, I'm sorry the way I acted, like, how can I do this differently? Like, that's the kind of stuff we need to harness to help people have better relationships. Because I think we miss out on a lot when we only focus on abusive relationships, because we don't think of all of the harm that's caused in our other relationships that doesn't maybe rise to a level where I'm staying in a shelter, but does hurt me in some way and doesn't allow me to be my best self in all areas. So my thoughts.
Thank you, Liz. Yes to both. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know. We are catching a moment in Monica's life. We have no idea. So this could be primary prevention. Maybe this is, you know, a couple of times that they've talked to each other like this and they're working through it. They're navigating it. It could be that they have had other unhealthy relationships or issues also present in their relationship, and now it's secondary prevention. And regardless, we are able to work on preventing further harm. Yes, some harmful behaviors have taken place here. Let's identify those. And there's also other ways that we can continue preventing. So Marcella's going to keep going with the companion guide. I know we have 5 minutes left, but just an invitation for you to think about, there's so many other folks that you can engage with beyond the preventionists and the advocates.
Absolutely. And I appreciate both Alexandra and Liz for bringing up those very, very real points. And also, you know, going back to what Alexandra said about the potential for child abuse. There's potential for child abuse here, right? This is why we brought Kylie into the conversation. And we are mindful of her actions. We want you to think about, what is Monica doing? You know, if you're working with parents and guardians, how you can have those conversations in real time with her. And, you know, thinking about, like Lupe did, you can hone it in on how she is, you know, caring for little Henry, and, you know, what is her stress level even at, right? Because if she's under stress, then, you know, right away, we know that Henry is going to feel that as well. So that relationship is immediately being impacted right there because of her lack of awareness for herself, right? And knowing that she needs to decompress first. So we can have those conversations with her, as well as the teachers with the, you know, parents and the students. Thinking about little Kylie, she is doing virtual learning right now. Is she able to concentrate on what's going on in her school if she's hearing her baby brother cry and her mother cry and scream herself, right? That is all going down on little Kylie, and who's there for her? Now, obviously, like, you know, we have said, this is just a snapshot. We don't know if Monica or James take the opportunity to have a conversation with Kylie. However, what we do know is that Kylie is kind of taking ownership of being a caregiver herself. So when little ones are feeling like they need to take on that responsibility, it's because they are feeling that emotional weight from their caregivers. So who's showing up for them? Who's being the trusted adult for Kylie and making sure that she's getting the needs, that her needs met? And even down to James, right? So James is at work and his boss comes in all furious, like, how dare you be on your phone when you're supposed to be working? Yet how can a worker truly be at their, fullest capacity if they're thinking about something else? And COVID absolutely impacted us, during the storytelling process. And you will see that reflected in the next story. There was many lessons learned during, this time in, in creating. And I really look forward to finding out from all of you as far as what takeaways do you have from this story, and what would you like to see in upcoming stories? Because I do guarantee you that they will become more enriched because of the feedback we have already received and will continue to receive. And this is where y'all come in. I'm putting a huge plug because of the fact that these are lived experiences. They are not limited to survivors, right? We are all, in a sense, surviving trauma right now, a collective trauma. So how is COVID impacting our lives? The upcoming stories I'm so excited to share with you. I know the next one is going to be about a student-teacher relationship. So really looking forward to hearing back from you on that, as well as bringing in those policymakers. Those are the other teachers above the teachers, right? They're the ones who are supposed to make sure that we have the funds to have these conversations, that we are not overwhelming our youth and even our teachers and staff with just constant lecture, but instead, where's that engagement? Where's an opportunity to collaborate with one another? And lastly, collaboration with you all. Our next two stories are, the first one, student and teacher. The other one is going to be about immigrants working out in the fields, very much impacted by everything going on.
Bilingual.
And bilingual, yes. And that one will be 100% bilingual, which I'm so excited about that one. So what else? I welcome your ideas. Bring them to the table, connect with us. I will put my information in the chat right now, but please get back to us as far as what do you want to see next? What do you want to tell us more about? We are here to hear the stories, not just in this capacity, but also in your own snapshots of prevention. What's going on in the field? How can we help support you and youth?
Huge congratulations to the prevention team. Thank you to Marcella for the storytelling. Thank you to Page Design for putting the idea into a graphic. No, there's currently no audio for the story. So keep in mind, we're working with a really small budget and we're trying to make the best we can with what we have. But I just wanted to share before we leave that think about all of our tools, right? As preventionists, you have a program, right? There's something like Coaching Boys into Men. There's something like this platform. As a standalone, it can only go so far. You can also bring this into a training. You can create a QR code for it so that folks can scan it with their phone and be able to open it up right away on their phone, or give them space like we did today for you to open it up, folks to walk through it, and then stop and pause and say, right, where Lupe asks about the wine and the drinking. Why is the assumption that Monica is drinking? Where did they say that? It kind of goes back to when we talk about gender norms and we say, we share a scenario and the kids immediately, or the adults are immediately like, well, he hit her. Where did we say it was he? Like, we make assumptions about so many things. And this is where you can take the story, step back and think about the different intersections. The employer. How many of you work with, what are they called? Workforce agencies or agencies that provide trainings to HR? How many of the HR folks at your organizations know about paid leave or are engaging their employees on how to navigate healthier relationships? Why? Because if we have healthy relationships at home and our financial stress is managed, we're more likely to show up to work and actually be engaged at work, right? So I see the nodding, like there's so many different ways that you can break this story apart and engage in conversations based on your audience. Who do you want to connect with? The Monicas, the James, the folks working with Kylie, the employer, the Lupes, and who are the Lupes? there's so many folks in your community that can engage. I know Marcella met with some folks from WIC, and these are nutritionists, lactation consultants, that you can engage in these conversations. So think outside the box. And again, as Marcella shared, you can always come back and provide stories to us. And just thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for engaging in the story. Thank you to the prevention team and the comms team for making such a beautiful project.
Thank you, everyone. And for our next PP, I know that we will be meeting on December 3rd. That will be our next meeting, and we will have that registration out for everyone as soon as possible. Thank you so much for all of the feedback and for being willing to engage. With the first Facebook Workplace, it did add a few folks. Feel free to email me if you would like to be added, and we can definitely get you connected. We also have our Prevention Peer Network listserv. If you are not on that, then send me an email and we'll make sure that you get added. And look forward to seeing everyone next time. Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Ciao.